Welcome to From the Red Couch, where local theater artists talk about the joys and challenges of creating theater in the Capital Region. We hope you enjoy the discussion and consider helping our friends at the Albany Barn. Your donations can help ensure that the Barn will continue to be here for Creative License and the many other local artists they support. Click the link in the description to make your gift. Now, please enjoy From the Red Couch.
So, Isaac, it has been, we've known each other for several years now.
Has been quite a while, yeah.
It's been, yeah, since I think 2012.
That far now, jeez.
So, yeah.
Going up on a decade.
Mm-hmm. We're getting there. Time flies when you're having fun.
It does. Has been a lot of fun along the way, too.
It has, it has. And so I think our my first and only show at Creative License with you was Dog Sees God.
Yeah.
2015?
Yep.
Yep.
Right around there. And that was a blast.
It was.
Like, thinking back on it.
It was a really good experience.
There were so many tater tots. And Salisbury steak. Were you there? You were there for the rehearsal for the Salisbury steak, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was awful.
I was there for
and they thought the idea of, let's do a full TV dinner for the school lunch, and it was the worst thing I ever tasted. Yeah. And I love food.
That was really a really sort of challenging part.
Yeah.
And Ben was great, and certainly Aaron was awesome. And we got to really sort of work that out so that my character, CB's latent homosexuality was, I think it came across pretty well, and we were really able to make it seem as real, and with all the sort of the conflict that was going on with the other characters.
Yeah. I believed it. My character was high all the time, so I don't know, what that says about it, but right. it actually looked good, and actually. Like that scene and you playing that like role of not being, fully quite certain of who you are, which I'd say almost every human goes through around that age of those characters. Sure. And then I think there's a lot of things that go on now where people are like, maybe we should have more actor representation, like the gay role should be played by gay actors, the straight role by straight actors. And I think that kind of misses the point of what an actor does to work on their art. And I actually really appreciated how well you guys did in that scene. And with your interactions, because there's the push of like, as a gay man myself, I'm like I have long been playing heterosexual roles. Sure. Like I'm in relationships with girls, getting married, all that stuff on stage, and that is a challenging acting role for me, and I love that. That's why we do it, is to get in the headspace and the shoes of other people. Sure. And so I really appreciated the two of you in that role and me getting to watch it from an outside perspective.
See? Look, now these here people are starting to die. I'm leaving. No, stay. Go inside up here. Shut up. This little faggot walked his faggy ass out of here. He's not going anywhere. Shut up, CB. I'm leaving. No. Yes, your dad waiting for you. Apologize to him. What are you looking at? No, he's just dead. So thanks for that. Hey! You disgust me. You okay? Yeah, good. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! What you just do? I think we should go now. Here you go!
It's a good point. Being the person, I mean, when we talk about presumably, a gay person, a gay actor portraying a heterosexual role, I think going from sort of the minority to the majority, I don't know. I think there's probably more opportunities for you to do that in a lot of regards. Sure. But I wonder, and I think I tend to agree, at least as far as sexual orientation goes. More and more we're also hearing about trans folks who really are starved for a presence.
Sure, and there's something to be said for that as well.
And theater. And so I wonder, is it different from one thing to another? I mean, certainly there's there's ageism, there's heterosexism, there's sort of a cis-centric thing that's happening, and I do think that there needs to be more representation overall. I mean, I certainly think that in terms of ethnicity as well. I mean, as we sort of make our way further into Black Lives Matter and how that relates to theater, what are some of your thoughts on how to increase our cultural competence as sort of privileged white folks?
I'd say a big part of it is, and it's going to start up front with like the choice of what shows we're producing, right, collectively. Because if we are producing more shows with more opportunity for a diverse range of actors to come in and play a diverse range of characters, I think both of those things are equally important. So step one, let's pick some shows that are really bringing those in.
Sure.
And then reaching out to our communities to say, hey, this is the kind of content that we want to produce.
Yeah.
And we want everyone to have access and everyone to be a part. And yeah, it's just going to start with a choice.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. The work that we do, and I think sometimes it's also being creative around whether it's gender or ethnicity, casting maybe non-traditional roles,
Sure.
with folks who might be from a minority.
There was a show here in the barn, Lonely I'm Not, starring, who was in that? That was Brigida and Ian.
Yeah.
And it was about a blind woman just going about the dating world. They did a showing for the seeing impaired.
Yeah.
So anyone could come in, and I was narrating the action. So they could fully just take in the full experience of not only what was being said and the vocal inflections, but what was happening on the stage.
Sure.
And it was really an awesome thing to be a part of, and I think we can do more like that.
One of the things I really like about Creative License is being able to sort of to work in a place that is very open to and very willing to engage in more inventive and creative and maybe even like daring pieces of theater. And I think that's certainly a draw for me, right? And Dog Sees God was one of those things for certain. But our first work together was at Albany Civic Theater.
Yes, Farnsworth
The
Invention.
Farnsworth Invention, yes.
With that massive cast.
I think it was 17 roles. I don't know if
so.
it was 17 people. I don't think it was 17 people. 17 roles. And on that, what now I think about as this sort of tiny acting stage is
Intimate.
It was very intimate. It was such a good experience for me because it had been, I believe, a full decade since I had been on stage in theater.
I think I don't think had I seen you in anything before that even? I don't think so, because you hadn't been on stage.
I hadn't, I mean, so Aaron and I worked together on the last thing that I had done 10 years before, which was Betty's Summer Vacation by Christopher Durang, also at Albany Civic. And
I've seen the poster.
I still look at that and feel badly about myself because I do not look that way like in a towel anymore.
We never looked that way. Yeah. We never looked that way.
Well, going from 21, almost 22 at the time, to 32 by the time 31 by the time we produced, our Aaron Sorkin play. It was just a great way to get back into it, right? And who doesn't love Sorkin? The dialogue is fantastic. It's quick, it's witty, it's sharp, and who doesn't love his work in West Wing and in the newsroom and whatnot. So, and then certainly getting to work with you and seeing. I mean, I didn't really. Not that I didn't see any community theater, but I didn't see a whole lot during that time.
Sure.
I was finishing college. I was starting and finishing grad school. I had moved back from Austin, Texas. And so coming back, I didn't realize the plethora of talent, particularly even just in that show with all that casting that needed to be done. But it was a real highlight to be able to work with you on that. Yeah.
That's always been a nice thing about this region too, is that it's so rich with theater, and not just theater, but talent. Just a lot of quality productions out there, and I love that there's enough that groups such as Creative License and some of the even the newer groups that have popped up since are able to push a little further out from those. You talked about the traditional plays that a lot of theaters put on. I mean, sometimes those are the ones that bring in the money needed to continue the process.
And they can be very challenging for actors. I mean, I don't mean to.
Sure, and there are some great roles, and a lot of shows get redone for good reason because they're great. Right. But it's really nice to see something new.
Why is it complicated? No, I just said, like, of course it's complicated. I'm your best friend. You know me. You know who I am. Why is it complicated?
Steven.
Steven? I told you, I don't care about the best man.
No, it's not that.
Then what is it?
He's gay.
What?
My brother Steven is gay.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. I didn't tell you.
Well, why didn't you tell me?
I didn't think I could.
What? Why? Oh. Oh.
Just wasn't sure how you'd react.
Okay. You know, I really would have been.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And I think also, I don't know if it needs to be originating a role, but learning a role that you've never seen before, or that you've maybe even possibly never read before. There is something very unique and exciting about that process, not knowing what it's supposed to look like, right?
Sure.
But then you do something with Tennessee Williams or Eugene O'Neill, you know, and it ends up being, okay, well, this person did a really great job, and it ends up being not completely, but partially an emulation of what you know worked. And
like Sherlock Holmes,
of course,
a very established character.
Absolutely.
Many different productions of it, and you got to do that at Schenectady Civic.
Yeah.
That was a joy to be a part of as well.
Yeah, that was, I think, in many ways one of my favorite acting experiences. I mean, the ensemble was fantastic. I definitely felt like I was one of the sort of weaker links who got to learn from the folks who were so talented and so attuned with their role earlier on. I mean, like you said, there's just so many Sherlock Holmeses out there, so many versions, and like you pick from here and there, and certainly the set and the costumes helped me sort of figure out where I wanted to go with Sherlock Holmes.
Who was your Sherlock Holmes?
I think it was a mix, man. I think there was sort of, for me, I mean, I loved Benedict Cumberbatch, although I hadn't seen much of that at that point.
Yeah, it was still fairly new.
Yeah,
at that point.
I think Elementary was the show. Elementary with Johnny Lee Miller was definitely a big one. But I also really liked what Robert Downey Jr. did, and it was funny.
That was fun.
And there was something sort of smooth and charming in the sort of in between moments, and I guess I try to do a little bit of that too. It's also a place where I feel comfortable as an actor. Sometimes it's hard for me, and I've heard this from just about every director, and one time or another is the better directors that I've worked with, that I know that I can struggle to sort of step outside of myself to really let go, and for whatever reason, sort of charming, debonair, mildly amusing is an area that I feel like is a wheelhouse that
that's a stretch for you, I know.
Well, I don't even think that, not just because it's me, but that's just a place where I feel like I can stretch to, but beyond that has been, over the last 5 years or so, I've worked toward being able to be more silly and more...
Kind of let go a little bit.
Yeah.
And it does take a little work
to
start breaking that back down, look at the pieces and say, which ones do I want to keep? Because you never want to lose yourself.
Right.
Some actors certainly do that.
Yeah.
And that it's dangerous.
Sure.
You lose yourself a little too much, and you might start to forget what was important
who
to
you
you
really
before.
are. I've heard that before about. I mean, certainly Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
Experienced that with the Joker, is my understanding, and also Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
With Hannibal Lecter. I think after that experience, he had trouble sort of coming back around.
Yeah. You stare into the void.
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis is another one.
He's gonna stare back.
Yeah, and for somebody who can be a little bit buttoned up as it relates to that as an actor. I have found those folks to be just unbelievable to watch and know what they do to prepare for a role and what it takes for them to come back from it. But I see your point though. I mean, I think if you go too far, it is,
Yeah. What are some of your? I mean, obviously, it commonly gets talked about where people take these negative traits from roles and then kind of stick around. But I think we also should talk about the good traits and the good qualities that we pick up from the characters that we spend time with. What's one of your favorite characters that you played that really gave you a little something extra to yourself or your personality that you were able to kind of hang on to?
That's a really good question. Well, I sort of have two answers. I mean, certainly playing George Bailey on a couple of different occasions in It's a Wonderful Life. The second of which was the radio play, but portraying that character. There is beyond the archetype that Jimmy Stewart sort of put forward. I mean, there is just a love and compassion that George Bailey has for his community. I think that if you're playing that role, you need to embody that level of warmth and altruism. And if you don't, I don't think it's going to be successful. But I think in general, in the roles that I played, no matter what the characters were, I mean, probably the most significant piece of advice that I try to keep in mind when I'm acting is being a good listener. And I think that I have improved my ability to listen, which certainly helps as a psychotherapist.
Yeah, for sure.
In my day job, but I think as an actor, it also improves my ability to react truthfully by really listening to what's being said and not just sort of waiting to say my lines.
Right.
What would you say for you is a characteristic that you've picked up?
I mean, I've definitely picked up a little something from just about all of them, but one of my favorites that hung on for quite a while, and there's still little hints here and there I see, was for all of his problems and all of his issues was on this stage, Alan from Dorian Gray. You talk about holding things close and maintaining a certain level of control over yourself. He was the opposite. So he was just whatever he thought in the moment he was going to say, whatever he wanted in the moment he was going to talk about, and he was always looking for an escape on the one hand, but always looking to have fun and make sure that the fun was shared by those around him. So it wasn't a selfish fun, it was inclusive.
Yeah.
Should one of us go after him? Leave it, Basil. That snob is not your responsibility. And besides, you are a star tonight. Try to enjoy it, won't you? Don't be such a boring waiter.
You don't understand, Alan.
Right. Well, what I do understand is I'm getting you drunk tonight, and I understand I'm finding you some ass tonight. That's what I understand. Come on. Tally fucking hell.
It's funny, and you've probably heard this from people that don't know you as well, that get to know you during certain shows. There are certain things that come across in your personality and your character that are leaking over from that character work, and they start to appreciate it. And then over time, they're like, you're a little different now than my initial impression of you. And it's like, what show was I working on then? When was this? Yeah, it was, Dorian Gray. Yeah, I was probably a little more wild and crazy. Whereas if I was working on Farnsworth, a little more smug, maybe, a little more different sort of confidence.
Sure.
Coming from a different place, more professional demeanor. Because you really do take those things. So it's like, if somebody only knows us casually and they meet us occasionally, then they're like, who is this person? They're different every time I meet them.
Right.
And that's one of the things I love about getting up on stage.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what's your, theater is a process, right? So it's from auditioning through, strike, pretty much.
Sure.
What's your favorite part of that process? Or has that changed over time?
Yeah, it's certainly been different at different times, but I would say collectively, my favorite part of the whole process is that moment, and it really happens in an instant, where you go from working lines and working scenes to it's just you're the character. You feel them, you see them, you see what they see.
Yeah.
You recognize the other characters, how they start to recognize the other characters, and it feels so good and so rewarding that all the work that you've put in and all the work that the director has put in, and even starting with step one, that the writer invested into this character, when it just flows into you.
Yeah.
And it's like, not like being possessed, but it's like you just feel inhabited.
That is a great moment in terms of that rehearsal process. Because I always feel like, when you have a book in front of you, you're learning lines, but you're also sort of getting a feel for the other characters and everything like that. And what ends up happening is when you start to put that book down, you actually take a step backward before you take a leap forward.
Which is my least favorite moment in every process. The first time you set the book down.
Yeah. I'm a believer that, I imagine, I've only directed one fully staged production, but I imagine when you have so many people on stage and you have so many balls that you're juggling that, there's just a lot of stress. I trust the people that I've cast, and I certainly trust my fellow actors that it's going to happen when it happens, kind of thing. Hopefully not the day before.
Yes, that is the preference. Man.
But no, I think that's the rehearsal process is, I think, my favorite time as well. I've gotten into that more and more.
So how has doing that bit of directing kind of changed your perspective on kind of a favorite moment of the process? Like what, as a director,
that's
moment there?
That's a good question. So I tend to be relatively cerebral as an actor. That can be, I think, a drawback. And I think, trying to make sure things look a certain way. It's like, as an actor, don't worry about what it looks like. Let the director worry about what it looks like, kind of thing. And I struggle with that. So it was really nice to be in a position where I could worry about what it looked like and be cerebral and try to, coordinate several things at once. And nobody could ever say it wasn't my business, because it was all my business.
Yes. At that point, it's yours.
Yeah. So it was the experience that I had. I directed Doubt at Schenectady Civic Players, and I've always loved that script. So, and I was able to assemble a really good cast. I think some of it for me is, how do I say this? Because this could have been some of the actors' least favorite moments in their in their acting careers. Is during the rehearsal process, as people are starting to get off book and really starting to embody the character, I think it's important to be able to stop and not just run a show. I mean, there's a lot of directors out there. It's like, just run the scene, and you run in the same scene 6 times. But what about if that scene is 11 minutes long and 2 minutes in, there's something that you really want to address?
Yeah.
And so I'd actually stop, which a lot of the cast wasn't used to, and I'd work moments. And I think for me, the play ended up as a series of moments as opposed to like a series of scenes,
Sure.
or 2 acts or whatever, And I was really proud to be able to facilitate the process in that way, because I do think that the actors ended up being proud of the product. And don't get me wrong, I know it's important to run scenes, it's important to run acts, it's important to run shows, and certainly, by the time we got to the end of the process, we were able to do that. But I just think in the beginning, I really enjoyed getting to really analyze the minutia and the character, right? I mean, it was more than just the lines, it was more than the inflection. It was like, what are you as Father Flynn, what are you thinking in this moment? What's going through your mind? And I think it's hard for actors, particularly who are just struggling to get off book, to keep all of that in mind, along with the words, the lines. So that for me, I'd like to do it again. It was a pretty significant undertaking. I'd like to direct again, but I have 2 young kids, 2 under 2 right now, and
they take a lot of your time.
They take a lot of my time, and I think it would take a lot, because it's sort of like putting together a blueprint.
Yeah.
That would just take more time than I have right now.
I actually had there's no other word than joy. Well, I mean, I could probably think of some other words if you give me a moment. But of directing high school plays for a private school up in Saratoga. And working with them, got to see a lot of that, creating the picture and putting things together. That really gave me a better appreciation for the work that directors do. It's nice to be able to appreciate and to develop, I would say as an actor, develop a better respect for what the director does, what the director goes through,
Yes.
So that you can better appreciate the energies they're putting into it, so that as an actor, you can do what you can to minimize the amount of time you take from those other processes, so that you can come up fully prepared, fully ready. I mean, I might even get off book a couple weeks earlier going forward after having
as a director,
experienced high schoolers not being off book for opening night.
You know, I notice as a director too that you really get to see the actors work together, and in a way that when you're on stage, you don't get to see quite the same way. And I really noticed that we're very fortunate to have some really generous actors in this area.
Yeah, for sure.
And I wondered who, I mean, present company excluded, so you don't feel any pressure. I wonder who is one of the most generous actors that you've had the pleasure to work with?
Well, excluding anyone in the room currently, I would have to say that I've really enjoyed. First one, I'll just go with the first one that came to mind. Joanna Palladino.
Yeah.
The last show I was in with her was over at Curtain Call Theater. That was Old Love, New Love. And the amount that she gives you as a fellow actor on stage and the attention that she gives you is phenomenal. Yeah. And that fed me so much energy as an actor sharing those scenes, that you can't help but just fully invest in the scene when everybody on stage is in sync and giving back and forth. First one that comes to your mind.
I'm going to have
Again, there are so many.
I'm probably going to have to do two because I was thinking about
Okay.
two people. They both popped into my head at the exact same time. Ian LaChance, for sure.
that was
gives
my
me
second.
so much to work with. I've worked with him on, definitely 3 fully staged, and then we worked together on 8. And there's just always, the best part is it always seems to be like a new thing on any given performance, to sort of sink your teeth into and react to. And I will say he's also the actor that I probably have the hardest time keeping a straight face with when things get funny.
Yes.
But it's all really good.
There's that little thing at the edge of his eye.
Yeah.
You can always see that he notices that something's going a little awry.
Yeah. But no matter what the mood is, and again, and all of those, which are the characters that he played, and certainly that I played, were very, very different from one to the other. But again, that sort of, there's always something for me to sort of glom onto as an actor that he gives, and that's very generous. Also, less so, I haven't really worked with her that much as an actor, but as a director, Angelique Powell is fantastic, and always really, she's first of all, she's extraordinarily directable, but she's also just such a generous actor, and watching her as a director, but also just seeing things that she's been in, like Clybourne Park and other things, just really, really fantastic. I'm so grateful to have folks like that in the area.
What's one of your favorite experiences you've had here in the barn?
I think it was the process around Dog Sees God, but there's an intimacy here, and I think the challenge of the role too. I remember telling Aaron when I had read the script, because as I recall, I wasn't actually the first choice to play CB. And I'm never going to let Aaron forget that. But I remember reading it. I remember like at the end of the play, just reading it, just breaking down into tears. And that I thought, this is such a unique opportunity, that I was able to carry that with me throughout the run. And I think part of that was because of the uniqueness of this space, which it took place in a high school.
Oh yeah, this could not have had a better location.
Right, this place looks a bit like a high school.
It still had some of the desks. From the school,
exactly.
Which we used in the photo shoot.
Yep. So all of that was just very special for me, and like you said, being able to really sort of push the boundaries. We have we're very fortunate to have some really quality professional equity plays in the area, particularly in the summer, but, Cap Rep certainly, and now Troy Foundry, and, there's some really, really good work being done, and it seems often like they're able to pick, shows that may push a little bit boundaries and everything, but again, the community theaters, I think they're in some ways, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean, I think there's some ways they want audiences to come. They're beholden to that, and I think Creative License has said the audience matters.
Yeah,
but
and I think we need both of those.
But we need both of those things, right? We want people to come see new shows. We want people to come see shows that have never been produced in the area before, and watch the talent on stage and off really sort of light it up. But for my money, I mean, in terms of really, really quality theater, there's not much better than Creative License.
Yeah.
I mean, from the top down.
There's a reason I keep coming back. I mean, aside from the fact that two of my best friends, kind of created Creative License.
See, I only like one of them, so
you'll have to guess which one.
No, it's a pleasure to keep being asked.
I've always gotten such a great experience out of the shows with them that, I mean, there's a reason I keep coming back.
Sure. And when you work with Aaron and Casey, if you've never worked with them before, they become friends.
Sure.
Of yours, I mean, that has been my experience, and you want to keep coming back. So, yeah.
Well, it's been a joy hanging out with you. I miss seeing you, and hopefully we'll get to see you on stage.
Well, hopefully together
in the
in the not too distant
Together
future.
again would be ideal.
Yeah.
Because we definitely had some good times.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Sure.